Hi, I'm Steve Hayes from the Department of Classics and World Religions. This is, as you have just heard, a time of discontent and tumult throughout the world. This tumult comes, I think, from a terrible confusion of priorities, purpose, justice and injustice, and proper human direction that have overtaken modern life. The Irish poet Yeats, in a time of similar discouragement and confusion soon after World War I, imagined a falcon that somehow loses track of its directing purpose, the falconer who sent it. And so, without any rational guidance, it flies in wider and wider circles with less and less purpose. In the same way, Yeats seems to say, human society and meaning fall apart. The center spreads so wide that it shatters into pieces. That is what happens when clear, purposeful leadership is absent, when mere anarchy descends upon the world. We at OU are not immune. In this presentation, I will show you budgetary evidence that things are on the verge of falling apart at Ohio University. The reason things are falling apart, I believe, is that we are not hearing the clear voice of rational leadership calling us back to a clear and natural center. The solution to our problem, I will argue, is for us, students and faculty, to become that voice until our proper leaders recover theirs. If you are an Ohio resident, you are paying over $9,500 a year in tuition and general fees to attend Ohio University, an institution established over 200 years ago with a purpose, a center, to be a means of education as set out in the Ordinance of 1787. I wonder, what are you paying $9,500 a year for? That's right. An education. This is the first of a series of graphs that will show changes in budgets at OU since 2005, the budget that was in place when Dr. McDavis became president. The numbers I will cite come directly from the OU budgets, the official ones. The black line on this graph shows budgeted revenue that comes directly from students, from you and your families, as tuition and fees. Since 2005, that budgeted revenue, the university's income, has increased 29.4%. The gray line tracks inflation, up only 12.8% since 2005. The next slide is going to show you how much the budget line called academic programs has increased. This is the cost of all colleges and schools on the Athens campus, except for the medical school. It includes costs of all the dean's staffs and of all faculty and support staff within departments. It includes all salaries and benefits, travel expenses, telephone and photocopying charges. I want you to guess how much that line has increased since 2005. We all know that the cost of higher education in recent years has far outstripped the rate of inflation. Right? The green line at the bottom of this graph traces the academic programs line. You will notice that it is about 1/3 below the rate of inflation, 8.3% during a period of 12.8 inflation. You will also notice that the administration and support line increased much more than either academics or inflation. It peaked at 23% in 2010 and came down to 18% over 2005 in this year's, that is the 2011, budget. If administrative increases had been restrained to the same level as academic, this year's administrative and support line would be $8.5 million less than it actually is. Administration and support, of course, consists of many different offices which are spelled out in the official budgets. Here's a table documenting the growth of each of its constituent lines. Some of these lines, those shaded in the darker green, have diminished in real dollars since 2005. The greatest cuts fell on student affairs, WOUB, and the library. The first of these three directly works with students. The second serves both communications students and the Southeast Ohio region. The third, the library, is essential to teaching. It is, in effect, an extension of the classroom. The Vice President of Advancement's line also diminished. I'm told that that was because many of its functions were transferred to the President's office. The growth of others, those that are shaded in the lighter green, were restrained to below inflation, which, as you will recall, was 12.8%. Funding for the provost, who coordinates and manages academic units, increased 8.6%, only a hair more than academic programs, and well below inflation. Finance and administration, which includes maintenance and grounds workers, was held to 5% growth, slightly less than two-thirds the growth in academic programs. The lines highlighted in pink show increases well above inflation, which, as you will recall, was 12.8%. The Vice President for Research, up 17%, over twice the rate of academic programs. Enrollment services, up 23%, 2.7 times the rate of academics. Apparently, we have to spend more and more to recruit students to come to Ohio University these days. Information technology up 73%, 8.8 times the rate of academics. And the President's own office up 106%, 12.8 times the rate of academics, and well over 8 times inflation. Another important expense line to look at is intercollegiate athletics, because of the sheer magnitude of its costs and its cost increases during the years of President McDavis' leadership. As the red line in this graph shows, the current administration has planned, budgeted to devote over $15 million in non-revenue producing spending to ICA, intercollegiate athletics, this year, up from $10 million in 2005. In case you don't know how much $15 million is at Ohio University, you should note at the bottom of the slide that it is far more than the budgets of entire colleges. I probably shouldn't have included the blue line in this presentation because I'm pretty sure it misrepresents things. It does that simply because I don't have an accurate understanding of the data it vaguely represents. But with that proviso in place, I still want to include some visualization of the fact that over the years, ICA has spent more than they were budgeted, with the result that until very recently, they were in debt to the university for about $7.5 million. The university is gradually writing that debt down, but it is important to note that somehow a university whose purpose is education lost sight of that purpose to such a degree that over the past several years it has allowed a non-academic program to run up a multi-million-dollar debt that must be paid down by diverting money from other functions, including central educational functions. So don't take the blue line literally, but do get the fact that while the growth of academic programs was carefully controlled, the growth of intercollegiate athletics was deliberately allowed to grow out of control and even to overspend its authorizations by over $7 million. Again, don't take the blue line very seriously in this graph of percentage growth. You will see from the red line, though, that the net cost of our continued membership in our current NCAA division has increased 48% at an absolute minimum. What you can't see is that the 2005 budget already included an 11% increase from 2004. These massive increases in subsidy to ICA, that is to say, began even before President McDavis' arrival, but he has extended them to a shocking degree. I need to single President McDavis out because despite the deepening and ongoing financial crisis that OU faces, he personally and persistently insists that OU will never get out of its current NCAA division while he is president. The green line reminds you of the restraint President McDavis' budgets have imposed on academics and emphasizes how emphatically he has prioritized intercollegiate athletics over education. Perhaps you will recall that total net income from tuition and fees rose only 29.4%. ICA rose at a rate 1/3 higher than that. If ICA's growth had been as restrained as that of academic programs, their current subsidy would be $4.1 million less than it is currently. You are paying for an education. You wouldn't pay quite so much at Ohio State. You might think that the extra $117 a year that you pay will go towards giving you a better education. It should, but it doesn't. In fact, $600 less per year of your money goes towards your education here than would be the case if you were attending Ohio State University. Why? Because Ohio University diverts between $750 and $800 per year of your money into the general fees rather than into tuition. NCAA Division I membership at OU is costing you almost $800 every year, money that could be reallocated to tuition instead. Which do you think is the better deal? Which university do you think is remembering its center? Which falcon can still hear the voice of the falconer? Current budget planning calls for a further 10% cut in academic programs in the 2012 budget. If that happens, the university will expect those academic programs to continue to generate at least 30% more tuition and fees revenue than they did in 2005, but at 2.5% less cost in absolute dollars than in 2005. That does not take into account the 15% loss to inflation over the period. OU, under its current budget plans, will continue to take more of your money and to give you less and less education. At some point, students will rightly decide that they are being defrauded, and when they do, they will quit coming. When that happens, and I believe it will happen very soon, Ohio University will become insolvent. We'll go broke. And I don't believe Governor Kasich is going to bail us out. What should OU do? We need to go back and fix the mistakes we made in the past. We need to return to a balance in budget lines that is similar to that obtained in 2005. We can save $8.5 million from the administrative and support line by returning that line to the levels that academics has been held to. We can cut $4.1 million from ICA by doing the same thing. and we should immediately begin plans to staunch the continued bleeding from ICA by making it self-supporting within the next 3 years. These 2012 cuts, along with very modest tuition and fee increases, would make cuts in academics unnecessary. We do not need to cut academics this year if we engage in the kind of disciplined control of other budgets that we have already engaged in academics. What can we do? We must remember the center and call people back to it. Our administrators are in the main wonderful, decent people. They do not want to make wrong decisions, but the President has ordered them to leave off the table certain budget lines: fundraising, his airplane, and most important of all, intercollegiate athletics. Only the Board of Trustees can countermand the President. I think they will listen to you. I know your faculty will. Your teachers want to stand up and oppose the President's priorities, but they don't want to step out as lone individuals and be despised as mere cranks. Not that there has ever been a case of any faculty member who has actually fit this description. If you will lead and ask your faculty to follow you, you will be amazed at how many will join you to make Ohio University once again a place where you pay for an education and actually get what you're paying for. Write the trustees. Tom Davis is the secretary of the board. Send letters through him in his office at Cutler Hall. He will pass them along to the board. If you want to know the documentation for what I've said, and if you want to read a further elaboration of my argument, please check my webpage. You can download everything that I have available there. I will speak for myself in saying that this widening gyre we are experiencing in world affairs and locally, this sense that mere anarchy is released upon the world, that we have lost track of what is reasonable and purposeful, it's frightening. And the thought of trying to challenge it either worldwide or in the much smaller context of Ohio University budgets is frightening. It often overwhelms me with a numb sense of hopelessness and vague fear. This is the kind of situation in which the arts and humanities come to our aid, with a reminder that we are neither the first nor the last who must decide either to give up what is truly valuable or to take our stand to defend it. I close with a bit of encouragement for me and for you, from humanists more eloquent than me, reminding us all that these times of crisis are also opportunities for us to become something we may never have imagined being: resolute and courageous and united, even in our fear and uncertainty.
Pull back! Pull back! Hold your ground! Hold your ground! Sons of Gondor! Of Rohan! My brothers! I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. an hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West!
Please note that I'm urging all of us here to dare to take a principled stand for the defense of reason, purpose, and Ohio University as an educational institution. In case there happen to be any members of the press present, I would ask for the personal favor that you not report that I am now likening President McDavis to the Dark Lord of Mordor. I am not.